Welcome to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. In this episode, we'll be listening to the Hyphenated Bookstore, exploring creative extensions of the bookstore experience, a session that was presented at Winter Institute 2025 in Denver, Colorado.
Welcome to the Hyphenated Bookstore. If you're here for astrophysics, it is the wrong room. That is next door. So let's start with some housekeeping, my favorite thing. Slides and handouts are in the app and the program. Fill out the session survey. I'll remind you to do that at the end because we get a prize if we have the most session surveys filled out. Recordings will be on BookWeb and BookEd. Please silence all cell phones and devices and make note of the exits. Oh, wait, that's airplanes. And when there are questions, please wait for the mic. Booksellers are encouraged to share ideas and support during the conference, but Sherman Antitrust Act prohibits them from discussing price or pricing policies, boycotts, or dividing up the market. For more information, see the ABA's full antitrust guidelines on BookWeb. Okay, so this is the session description. You've heard of the Bookstore-Cafe, but what about the Bookstore-Podcast studio or the Bookstore-Yarn store? Many bookstores are diversifying their businesses in innovative ways, kind of like what we did. I don't know if mine's that innovative compared to some folks up here, but so come here from a panel of booksellers who have expanded the traditional definition of the bookstore. All right. This is our agenda, and on with the introductions. I myself am Rob McAllister of Dungeons Gate. In Ankeny, Iowa, which is kind of north of Des Moines, we have the dazzling Rick Griffith from the shop at Matter. I'll maybe have you guys just say hello and maybe what makes your shop a hyphenated bookstore? Rick?
I have like 3 minutes on this. Is that okay? Is that too many minutes?
You have 30 seconds. Go.
30 seconds?
Go. As long as you want.
Oh, okay, sure. Hi, my name is Rick Griffith. I run a business called Matter. Our bookstore is called The Shop at Matter. I suppose it's important to say that we began as graphic designers. We have a 30-year career in graphic design. I have an additional 20 years of printing on 19th century and early 20th century printing presses called letterpresses. And we opened a bookstore to fulfill a need in our community for any intersectional identities that didn't have a place to safely shop without buying the books next to them that were written by the people who are actively trying to destroy them, erase them, kill them, or otherwise dispute their identities. So all the bookstores in Denver were generalist bookstores, so no safe place to shop, really. The general idea behind our bookstore is that we were born hyphenated in the sense that we were born as graphic designers who sort of had a sense of how to participate in our community. And that sense just continued to grow and grow and grow. We now operate a venue in the back of the bookstore. We have a bookstore, we have a design studio, we have a print shop, and we have a design reading room. We have a whole building where the books are not for sale, but for reading. We have a small library program for locals so that they can check out nonfiction titles. And inside of that space, you know, what we're also trying to do is encourage people to read for pleasure when they can. And then the nonfiction books are kind of things that we're trying to supply them to cope with these acrimonious times. That's less than 3 minutes. I'm good.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. And then next to me, the effervescent DJ Johnson.
I'll let Laura go first.
Oh,
Laura.
Ladies first. Fabulous. Laura,
Thank you. My name is Laura Taylor. I'm from Oxford Exchange. We really started, the idea was to have a bookstore, but, the family really has a background in hospitality. So they knew that, if they were going to have a bookstore, it really needed to have a restaurant component and other components. So the building was built with the idea of really also being a hyphenated bookstore. All of the components of Oxford Exchange are the heart of the building always comes from the bookstore in the direction, while yet at the same time, it's really only about 600 square feet that are dedicated to the bookstore and another 1,700 that are dedicated towards a retail space that focuses on more shop gifty books. So in total, we're a 25,000 square foot property, and we do mainly events and a very, very popular restaurant. We do a lot of not just programming book events, but the other half are weddings, wedding showers, book fairs, festivals, different things like that. So we really, in the past 12 years that property has been open, we really focus on, doing things that we haven't done before. And when the doors close at 5:30, we try to think of unusual things. Recently, a year ago, we partnered with Candle Pour, a candle making local group. So part of our facility has a little candle shop. So that's really fun. We've always been hyphenated. It's really important who we are as a bookstore, but the restaurant is, a huge engine. So we have to keep on top of that as well.
Okay. DJ?
Hello, everyone. I'm DJ Johnson of Baldwin & Company in New Orleans, Louisiana. Appreciate you all being here. So we, in opening up Baldwin & Company, like everyone was telling me that bookstores don't make money. And I was like, okay, I got to figure out a way to make money because this doesn't fit well with me. So, so just understanding, I read a book once and it was talking about how, the average millionaire has 7 different streams of revenue coming in. And some of those have to be based on passive income. So for me, in building Baldwin & Company, it was like, okay, how do I get 7 different streams of revenue coming into this building? So part of that, what makes us hyphenated is, of course, we sell books. We have a food and beverage component. We also do a podcast studio, whereas we have our own podcast studio. We have our own podcast, which is on YouTube. So that's another stream of revenue, as well as we rent out the studio to customers to be able to come in and do podcasting. So that's another stream of revenue as well. Then, of course, we have an Airbnb on top of the bookstore. That is another stream of revenue. And then, of course, we do private rentals because I have a courtyard that has a max capacity of 800 people. So that's another stream of revenue. And then we have apparel and merchandise, which we treat as our own separate entity and not a sideline item. So that's another revenue. And then the 8th one is just sideline items like stickers, cards, things of that sort. But when you really look at it, it's like I built my revenue business on everything else, and I build my mission on books because everything else that I just named have higher margins than books.
Yeah, and I'm Ron McAllister. Like I said, Dungeons Gate is originally, like most of the folks here, started as a hyphenated bookstore. So we do tabletop games, role-playing games, and all the collector card game kind of things. And we really found that the games are a sideline for the books and the books are a sideline for the games. And we specialize in sci-fi and fantasy genres. And the folks who play role-playing games read fantasy books. And the folks who read fantasy books play role-playing games. So it made sense. It's a good fit. So moving on to understanding the hyphenated bookstore. Before I get going a little bit further, I should thank Ingram as the lead sponsor of this event. I think I missed that somewhere. But thanks to them, this is all possible. So I will thank them. A hyphenated bookstore is a bookstore that has an additional or multiple, in the case of DJ, many multiples, businesses as part of the operation. Basic definition. And diversifying your business is a way to have various streams of revenue, which is beneficial to the margins when book selling margins become tight.
When? Could be worse. How are the game margins?
Not too bad. I mean, honestly, it varies. Some game margins are better than books, and some book margins are better than the games. Depends on the publisher a lot of times for both. I'd say, and the distributor. So, yeah. So hyphenated bookstores are community focused. And we found this to be true after we started our store. We branched out from sci-fi and fantasy because we found a community that was really underserved in our area. And so now we have a full-time Pride section in our store, which is fantastic, as well as a full-time banned books section, because we felt that is a community that's very underserved in Des Moines. But who else wants to take this as a topic for community focus?
I mean, it's hard. Like, I think as bookstores, we're all community focused, so it's hard not to be in the book environment. And, definitely what's really great is, the amount of people that come, maybe they have published their own book or, they have a book club or something like that. And even book clubs alone, that's the heart of it, where the community is. And I think, the opportunity to partner with the chamber and I think it's just hard for us not to be community focused. Mm-hmm. But the great thing about being an independent bookstore is that we really get to react and take on the personality of our community. And the more we do within that, the more we can have our space reflect that community. So, Tampa likes to brunch and they like to have fun. And, for us, that model really works great. So we get to, trap them as they come in for brunch, and then they get sidelined by, oh, look at that pretty book cover with the painted edges. So, but.
And just to add to that, I think in being community focused, you have to find creative ways to monetize your mission. Mm-hmm. So like one of the things that we do is like our merchandise in terms of like our apparel. We make sure to tie in every purchase of our apparel into you supporting our mission. We have a nonprofit as well. And the nonprofit is really like the arm that really pushes the merchandise. We don't so much push the merch through the for-profit side, but through the nonprofit side, because we want individuals to think of it as a B Corp. So every time individuals are wearing Baldwin & Company merchandise or purchasing, they understand that they're a part of a tribe. And that tribe is part of the individuals who are on the front lines of protecting and preserving American democracy. So that's the narrative that we're constantly driving. But that's a creative way how to monetize your mission, is to tie in something like your merchandise, like your apparel, to create a tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, almost echoing back what the community is bringing to you in terms of needs. Mm-hmm. I like that.
DJ, wait, a question on your apparel and your merchandise. How did you go about, deciding, and when did you decide on that, on launching it?
So initially we, a meeting with a consultant who saw some of our merchandise, and he was like, hey man, I think, damn, that's loud.
Hey, Emily.
He gave me the idea of like, I really think this could be a standalone entity rather than a sideline item. It was like, some of your designs are pretty nice and your brand is really strong and growing. So with that being said, I just created a Shopify store. Created a website for it, and really started pushing it and started doing creative ways to expand the reach. So if anyone goes on our Instagram page, and if you make a comment on our Instagram page, you're going to get a discount code automatically sent to you to purchase 15% off your next purchase from off our merchandise. So just expanding that reach, making sure to do creative giveaways with our merchandise, partnering up with different brands to be able to do cross-promotional items with our merchandise. So the way it came to me is like when I really started seeing the sales accelerate from the partnerships and really just treating it like its own entity. And I'll just give you an example. Like, for instance, like the margins on merchandise in terms of apparel is anywhere from 70 to 90%. So when I started looking at the margins on merchandise being 70 to 90% in terms of apparel, and then I started looking at it on books being anywhere from 42 to 46% with a max of 50%. And, very rarely are we even getting that on our average book sales. I was like, it just makes sense to build this out as its own separate entity. So it's almost like Baldwin & Co. apparel. But that's what it really, the numbers determined that I needed to build out my apparel as a separate entity. and not just a sideline item. Because so just go on Shopify. Shopify got amazing analytics. You can create your own store, get your own website, and then start pushing it out. And I guarantee you're going to fall in love with the profits.
Yeah.
So in contrast to the concept of profits, I exist. And I say that because I'm a Marxist, and I'm not afraid to be a Marxist, but I am afraid to be a capitalist. Owning 20th century and 19th century printing presses has a benefit, but this is our very distinct product. So we communicate with our customers with these pieces. And if you want to hold up for me the one that says "I stand" at the beginning. So that's the print that we made when George Floyd was murdered and put into the streets in Denver so people could march and stand behind something entirely Black made. And we also put them on sticks for people so that they could use the stick as an improvisational protective device. The whole point of us having printing presses is that we have this opportunity to bring truth making into the atmosphere, to bring you can walk down the aisles. Thank you so much for this. This is awesome. I feel like I'm cheating. But the astrophysics isn't entirely out of our realm, because the BLARP poster that's walking towards you right now is called the Black Astronaut Research Project. And it was determined because a friend of mine said, is there a narrative that exists without Black people and the North Atlantic slave trade? And I said, probably the one that's when we're in outer space. So we defined the BLARP, and we have a website that supports that. We make absolutely no money on that. And the posters are $25. The idea that we have this print shop and that we're using it to communicate our sort of values and our messages is one thing, but also every Thursday night from 5 to 8 p.m., we invite the community in to do Print Truth to Power, which is a community print shop night where you can come in and we'll have a collaborative project on the press, and you can participate with that and leave home with a print. The print that says "Your Racist Stapler" that's coming up right there. These two prints were designed and typeset with, letters from the 1850s and from the early 1900s. And those began to be produced when the executive orders started to come out. And so what we wanted to do is create a critique of bureaucracy as well. So we have things that cover, I am a sort of, like I said, a somewhat resistant capitalist, but I'm also a writer and a polemicist. And we try and stay in touch with the time that we're alive in. And then we try and keep our customers connected to the time that we're alive in as well. So we also have seminar series and book clubs and other things that we don't make money with. But the whole point of being hyphenated is also that we have this consistent way of living in the world. Being a bookstore is one way, but our previous career is kind of like pushing us out to say, as designers, you're one thing, as printers, you're one thing, as in the bookstore, you're one thing. And so it's about us being consistent in the world and giving the people working for the people in general. So that's a thought. Thanks for the support, you guys.
Yep. Yeah, that really speaks to hyphenated bookstores, kind of break the boundaries or the mold of what you're defined as, and thinking outside that box and trying to reflect back what the community is around you in what you are as not just as a business, but as an entity. And it's extremely diverse, as you can tell by the folks up here. So what are the challenges in doing a hyphenated bookstore? Certainly from our perspective, when we started as a hyphenated bookstore, so we were able to have that luxury of choosing our employees from the very beginning, knowing what we were going to be diversifying into, and choosing employees that had that diversification of knowledge. Some of our employees are stronger in some areas than others, but that makes us all stronger in the end. And that is a big challenge, I think, for all of us. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Well, I mean, it's hard because, for us, we have experts that are, trained qualified chefs that we work for. So I think everybody, depending on, hopefully I know you guys, when you're coming into this session, if you're here, you're already thinking about ways that you can hyphenate your bookstore and what fits for your community and what you're good at. But it isn't just that, it's your customers. If you're in a bike community, a bike bookshop is probably something that would make sense. But you have to realize that not every bookseller is going to be a great bike mechanic. So that is the first challenge, is that, finding, first of all, we have a hard time finding educated booksellers that know about all the books on the shelf anyway. But welcome to the other challenge of, if you're serving coffee, they now need to be great baristas and know their roasts and how long to brew that. So that it shouldn't scare you, because I think, great minds, gravitate towards each other and you create a great model. But it is something that you have to think about before you get into it. What talent is in your community and what in your network and your personal friend space. So I think that would be the first one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just think, to echo what Laura said, the challenges is just finding the staff. You're stretching your staff, you're stretching yourself, but I do think it's worth it. But it's just, increased staffing, training, labor hours, finding individuals with multiple skill sets. That's the challenge. But I think the benefits far outweigh any of the challenges. And just to kind of give you an idea, food and beverage, I know it's hard to find those individuals in food and beverage, but the average gross margins on just coffee is 60 to 70%. Yep. And then the gross profit on apparel is on average 80%. The gross profit margin on an Airbnb is 60 to 80%. The gross profit margin on books is 40 to 46%. It makes a big, it makes a difference. You mentioned the event rental space.
Yeah. And alcohol. If you really want to get that.
You get alcohol, it's 90%. It's 80, 90%. You're going to kill it. You're going to kill the market. Yeah. So I highly recommend that. Yeah, definitely. But that's a different challenge in terms of the staff as well. So I own a bar also. So the margins on alcohol are amazing, but the staff, I could never have my bookstore staff actually go work in my bar. It just wouldn't work. So it's just too much of a staffing challenge. Right. But the event space rental, of course we do event space rental, and the average margins on that is 60 to 80%. On the podcast studio, average margins on that is 70, 90%. On just podcasting alone, the average markup on that, in terms of with YouTube and building a passive income, it's anywhere from 100 to 300% return on that, just by the way YouTube is paying out money. So make sure, if you're starting a podcast, work hard to become monetized. And once you become monetized, and that just means 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours, then that's the passive income. You're making money while you sleep, which is ideally what you want to do. That's the goal. So it's worth it. Now you have to hire an editor, or you better get really, really good at Adobe Premiere Pro. But it will pay for itself. Just to give you an example, the compounding annual growth rate for podcasting right now is from 26% to 38.9%. The average compounding annual growth rate for physical book sales is 4.2%. Right. It just makes sense. Yeah. So I love physical books, but I would say if you like money, if you want to make money, then you might want to find other streams of revenue for your business.
It's perfect. I'm right here.
It's not for me, DJ.
This one doesn't like me.
It's not for me, DJ.
So when someone tells me the margins are really high on something, my impulse is to give it away because it's cheap, right? And it doesn't cost me a lot to give it away. And that becomes the draw into the studio, or into the workshops that we're doing, or into the seminar series. So I'm not saying that we don't have high margin products, but the highest margin product in our space is actually me. Last Friday, I gave a lecture at the Museum of Modern Art. My work is collected in 6 or 7 museum collections around the country. I sell it around the world. Every year, the work that we make appreciates in price, and every year we sell it in the bookstore, right? So when a serious collector comes along who's into printmaking, letterpress, they can buy something that's from the back catalog that the Denver Art Museum has been owning for 20 years, and they can buy that for $1,000, right? So my flat files are my like high margin projects and products. And that's how I've designed to create it around my career. And it's interesting because I get to be an artist. I also get to use that money to hire people, pay them a living wage, be in community with them, run seminar series about neoliberalism and politics, and create a community in Denver that has an appetite. And that appetite actually, strangely enough, sometimes kind of perforates the general idea that we're the proletariat, and it actually goes into some high wealth people who are interested in buying works that are collected by museums. So I'm fortunate to be on in the middle of a so far 35-year design career that is starting to sort of burgeon into a series of sellable products that I've been holding on to in flat files and moving around the country for the last 20 or 30 years. But it's not that I don't like money. I just think of money as a lubricant towards creating the world that I want to live in. And the world that I want to live in has got livable wages and doesn't necessarily, and I drink, but I don't sell alcohol. Now, we have reasons why we don't sell alcohol, just because the community that we serve in their sometimes neurodiverse state can't handle alcohol, and it's a bad idea to have that stuff present, or so on and so forth. So we're doing a different thing in our community building around it. But what I like about what these guys are talking about is that these are diverse strategies, right? If you happen to be like me, a reluctant capitalist, then you're thinking about the sentence that DJ said, which is that we exist in a part of this well-informed democracy, right? And you're thinking about our role in that democracy and how we are part of the media mix and how we are holding a place that like massive corporate bookstores can't really hold, right? Like if a corporate bookstore contracts their right-leaning or left-leaning offering to their market and they're the only thing in that place, they're defining the diet of that particular geography. And so independence, like who we all are, we're part of that diet. And so I want you to think about like, it's not just whether hyphenation is right for you or what kind of hyphenation it is, but drawing the community closer and understanding their needs helps you figure out what your strategy is going to be. I want to stay at his Airbnb. Facts. I saw the pictures too. I was like, I want to be there. Right. And the next time I come to New Orleans, I hope you'll offer that. I gotcha. It's yours. Like, cause the Bywater is nice, but it ain't, that's tight. That's really delicious. So, I want to participate in a world I want my geography to be affected by our work. And that's my biggest pull. That's my biggest draw in all of this. I'm very much a political human being. I'm very much interested in staying a political human being. I'm interested in people around us being in this engaged and active democracy, right? To save what's left of it at least, right? So those are my big draws. But I am an artist. I am a designer. I am a printer. And these products participate in that. If you're a maker of any kind, start thinking about how your making product participates in sidelines that have enormous margins, right? And then think about whether or not, as DJ so articulately says, he says, well, it's like, that's not part of that story. That's actually part of this story because it does its best work in this story. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a really important part about your positioning of your making or your merch or your products or whatever you're hyphenating towards. It's easy to hyphenate towards a transformation math, right? So think of a chef. A chef is transforming raw materials into high-priced, high-value, high-quality food, right? So the margins in that space are the idea that there's a transformation going on. We're transforming letters and paper into messages and stories, right? And artifacts. And, when you're transforming ideas into various experiences, I bet your courtyard is a great place to get married. I bet all these things are experiences. You want to take something that you have an abundance of and you want to leverage that into something that you can make some scratch with. And I'm new to this. Like I am a novice in the ABA. I don't know if we're allowed to say it, but the margins are shit. The margins are fully shitty.
You can't say that.
And it's our job. It's our job in this room to talk about how to mitigate that with other things. But I do think it's also our job to think about that and say, what other business is price fixed like this? And what conversations with publishers could we have about that? Because if it's always about how to augment your circumstance, how to pay for Peter with Paul, if it's always going to be that, then we should have a podcasting session next time. And then we should have an Airbnb session next time. And we should be filling the holes with like alternative sources of incomes and how to actually acquire those, right? How to actually nest yourself inside those places as professionals and not just as amateurs. So I think we have a twofold mission. Of course, we want to advocate for the hyphenated bookstore because we are doing two things, right? We're creating part of the world that we want to see happen. And at the same time, we're also being experts in other spaces. And we're showing up as leaders in those spaces too, whether it's, hospitality or, as it turns out, everything else. And, but that's a good idea to hyphenate, be rich, get 7, 5, 6 sources of income, but also question the premise. Like, let's participate in questioning the premise, right? And let's try and make our conditions better, because you can't create succession planning if you're never making money, right? So you don't have a future. You only have a present and a past. So I love you all and I respect you all, and I'm new to this game.
So yeah, finding good employees can be a challenge.
Correct.
But you should also take inspiration from your employees. I mean, that is one way to diversify and hyphenate, is to take inspiration from your employees. If you happen to have an employee who works for you but is a fantastic barista, then leverage that by all means, and look to them for inspiration first, because honestly, that will be the easiest way to then bridge that knowledge rather than having to acquire it completely from scratch. So, store layout. I got a chance to see the shop at Matter.
Did you see the print shop?
I did not.
Did you see no? So you saw.
I got to see it from the outside.
You saw like a third. I know.
That's why I was like, I wish I could have seen the whole thing. And I am also really curious how you managed to accommodate recording in a bookstore without the ambient noise being too ridiculous. But
it's tough because the podcast studio is all glass, and while it creates a amazing visual effect, because we've been able to hold live podcasts, so as you'll see some of the most prominent thought leaders, you'll walk in and you might see Eddie Glaude Jr. in a conversation with Imani Perry while you're getting your cup of coffee, or you'll see Clint Smith in a conversation with Jasmine Ward. You might see Annette Gordon-Reed in a conversation with Jonathan Ike. So we've created that element to where as you walk in and you can just walk in by happenstance and see two of your favorite authors engage in a dialogue. It is a challenge because some people be like, "Oh my God!" and then
like knocking on it, like
hey, like Clint, can you play? Yeah, big fan, Clint. Jasmine, I love it. So, but we have our. I have an amazing team, and as individuals are walking in, they're letting them know, hey, there is an active podcast going on in the back. The podcast studio is all the way in the back. So there's a walkway to where as individuals can recognize and notice that this is a live podcast happening while the shop is open, because all of the podcasts are shot while the shop is open for the element, because we want individuals to be able to see, be like, hey, I might just walk in Baldwin & Company today and see my favorite author having a conversation with their favorite author. But it's also the mics. Investing in the right mics is important. And the way technology is today, it can cut out the ambience noise, and then AI does an amazing job with the post-editing work as well. So that's how I would do it. But I highly encourage everyone. I think everyone here should develop a podcast arm to like, everyone should have a hyphenated bookstore. That part of that hyphenation is podcasting, just because of the growth rate and just by the way that YouTube is shelling out money for it.
Just think about it as media production.
Yes.
Yeah. Like those are media. That is media. You eat this stuff, but it's like whatever.
We're
It's
opening a
very tasty.
podcast
You gotta
studio
live on
next
that.
month.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Podcast
So
studio next
everyone
month.
goes somewhere.
Yeah.
So if you're challenged without the expertise or the physical space, that's where I think you have to look outside your immediate four walls and look to partner with other people. I know we have partnered with a local podcast occasionally to do those efforts into expanding our communication. But have the other three on the stage partnered with other folks in terms of event space or?
I mean, we partner, event spaces, community partners are invaluable. So anything, we partner with a local nonprofit theater house, and we've had a great relationship with them. And I think those, we were lucky it happened organically because, we work with them from our food side and donate our time for that. And it just, they meet us in the middle when it comes to hosting an author who's, upward of 200. So it's really great. But, a lot of that is just, time. It's knowing your community and figuring out, who wants to, it should be it should be mutually beneficial. And usually with books, a lot of people don't even realize they can bulk buy from us. And, there are so many things we could do as booksellers and bring to them. So it comes down to the networking, and I find it always happens at a book club. So somebody knows somebody at a book club. So.
Yeah, good point.
We did a partnership when I first opened Baldwin & Company, to whereas I went to one of the top event planners in the city, and I said, "Hey, if you, I'll give you 30% commission on every event that you bring to Baldwin & Company. Here's my space." So she created a guidebook, took professional pictures, and for every event that she held at Baldwin & Company, she got 30% commission on. And it worked well, and we don't have that partnership anymore because the brand is so strong right now. But we're constantly getting solicitations for inquiries and for events, for private events at Baldwin & Company. I mean, we're constantly getting inquiries and getting booked, and we charge $750 an hour. So it's $750 an hour, the minimum of 4 hours for any event. And probably like every week, we're getting inquiries and getting bookings. But part of that was because she helped build our notoriety amongst other event planners, amongst other people in the city. So that's a good idea to whereas you just look up who the event planners are in your local area, bring them in on a partnership, do it for like a year to help them build your brand in terms of like, hey, I'm going to pay you a commission. We're going to split this commission. And then after that, like once your brand is built, then the rest is done. Like you don't necessarily need the partnership anymore. But you're going to continue to get all kind of inquiries for people to do private rentals at your space.
I have a question. How do you handle the F&B component if someone pays the $750? Do they bring in the food or?
No, you have to use our caterers, and we charge an additional 15% on top of that. Okay. So you have to use our caterers. You have to use our security as well. So we charge for security. Security is mandatory. So we have a couple of mandatory things that you have to buy. You have to buy event insurance, but on most of the things we tack on an additional 15% on top of that. You have to use our stage. You have to use our chairs. You can't rent them from outside sources. So we're charging.
That's more than 8 streams of income.
I'm getting dizzy. I was like,
Can you talk about what you're putting it back into? Because I feel like you left that part out.
Yeah, so we put it in because
he said he likes money. You heard
exactly. So the multiple streams of revenue, what they do is they don't only just provide security because it's too stressful to go to bed every night wondering how you're going to pay your employees, and you want to pay them a livable wage. So, but the investments go back into like our book festival. So within the first 3 months of opening, we held a book festival where we gave away over 700 books to kids. We provide free food, free drinks, free entertainment, free backpacks. Every year we do book festivals where all the books are free, all the food is free, All the gift items are free. Everything is free, and we've done it every single year. We've held actually 11 book festivals since opening, and every single one we've given away free books to everyone who attend. So we also do our children's story time, to where it's every second Saturday of the month. Kids come in, they play games, they get free books for every single kid. We also have a Paying for Pages program, because I am a partner in a credit union that is in one of the properties that I own. And for every book that kids read, we put dollars into their bank account. Now, they do have to bank with us, but we put dollars into their bank account. And you can take a kid, just give an example. So a kid is 8 years old. Let's just say he's been in our program reading books. So every book report he submits, then he's getting dollars put into his bank account. Fast forward 10 years, he's 18 years old. Every 18-year-old graduated from high school, they want to buy a car. So now he's been in our program learning about financial literacy for 10 years. He's a very astute learner because he's read a number of books. He's got a down payment because we've been paying him for every book that he's read. He has a credit profile, which most 18-year-olds don't. He has a banking profile, which most 18-year-olds don't. So now at 18 years old, you have a very reliable borrower. So that's one of the things that we do, as well as the children's story time, the book festivals. But we give away so much for free, but it's because we have so many different streams of revenue, to whereas the work that we're doing, it's in terms of the community work, I honestly, and this is not capping or anything, but I don't know if there's another bookstore in the country that does the community service work that we do, from the financial literacy to the language literacy to the book festivals, to whereas even the vendors who come to our book festivals, we don't charge a booth rent, we don't charge a venue fee. Everything is free. They keep all their profits, and we are constantly giving everything away for free. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Free stuff ain't free, so the high margins help.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Very
totally.
good.
It makes great sense.
Yeah. Should we open it up to Q&A?
We are at 41 minutes in.
Out of what?
60.
Well,
We only had
60?
60.
Yeah.
So, we just got a couple more slides before Q&A.
Okay.
We'll do them fast.
Okay.
That slide.
Yeah, increase workload. So it's a lot of work. Obviously, the hardest working man in book selling, right next to me. How do you handle the stress and the? I mean, you mentioned the stress of going to bed at night and making sure your employees are paid, but I mean, how do you? I mean, you certainly gave a great justification for the reason for it, but how do you handle the increased workload without driving yourself crazy?
I think the mission. The mission is what keeps me motivated. Knowing that we're all making significant impact in our communities. So that's really it. I don't really stress too much over it. So it's probably. I don't know. It's probably not the best answer, but I just honestly don't stress too much over it. But I have a great team, so it's not just me. Like, I have an amazing team. I just one of the best teams in the country. So a lot of the workload is done by them as well.
Yeah, I would say the same for us in terms of the ways we have branched out to serve the needs in the community is paid back. So many times over, just with that community engagement and finding that safe space for a community that doesn't have one is its own reward for sure. So I think we answered this. Diverse income streams. So big questions for you all to figure out. What does your community need? Are you already an expert or in this area, or do you have employees who have an expertise that is untapped? And is there high or low risks to your new hyphenation? That's a good point too, that you may find an area that seems attractive to you, but you've really got to run the margins and the dollars and cents in how to get into that area and figure out if it makes it worth it for you, or if you can achieve that. There's a lot of questions to be answered. And we probably will have a few questions to answer in just a moment.
If I may give one tip, so if individuals are considering adding food and beverage to your shop, one of the things that I would highly recommend is download the software called Margin Edge. And what it does is it helps you maintain the cost. I know food and beverage is the easiest one to hyphenate. So a lot of people are thinking like, okay, I'll just add food and beverage to my shop. But Margin Edge helps you measure and monitor your costs. You want to make sure that your cost of goods for your item, for your menu items is below 30%. And you can put in every single ingredient and it will do automatic tracking for you and send you alerts anytime there's a, say, eggs is one of your ingredients in something. So when the prices go up, then it will automatically do the calculations and send you a notification that, your cost of goods sold have just now gone up from 27% to 67% because that's how much eggs have now cost. So, so if you're thinking about adding food and beverage, make sure you're monitoring and doing the work of putting in every single ingredient that you're thinking about putting into your menu and making sure that that cost is below 30%.
From an ideological perspective, I'll read something from our bulletin, and it just kind of, I think it encapsulates our sort of entrepreneurial spirit. It says, the projects and the strategies we dream up are sometimes intentionally big and long and incredibly difficult and wicked. And sometimes they are short-term and small and very doable. Some are well-funded and some are underfunded and quite fragile. Many of them are small proofs of concepts worthy of our attention. They are big system proposals that inspire or create whole new behaviors or actions. This is to say, your imagination in this regard is crucial. You can follow. But oftentimes when you find yourself following, the race isn't to the top. Sometimes you accidentally might create a race to the bottom, right? Like if you're going to be hyphenating towards a coffee shop or another F&B project that's like close by, then you're creating a competitor, right? So your imagination is the most important thing you'll have, is how you'll be differentiated in that hyphenation and how the hyphenation continues to fuel your practice back and forth, your enterprise back and forth. We call Matter an enterprise. I think DJs is an enterprise as well. I think we're all participating in a particular enterprise, and some part of it is books. But if you fail in your imagination, then, there are people to follow and there is great advice, but never put that down. I just want to encourage you to lean into that, because that's what will hold your mission. That's what will hold your attention. And that's what will keep your spirit alive.
Well said. So an activity for you all: look to what needs your community has, what partnerships, do you have that you could help diversify, but also differentiate your business? I think that's a really key takeaway from that. All right, call to action: ask what your customers want. Talk to your employees. Find out what passionate expertise they have. And get out in your community. I know that is extremely hard for the owners and the managers and the booksellers to spend time away from a bookstore, but get out in your community and talk to people and see what needs are not being met in your community. And look for that space. If you don't have it in your current space, talk to your landlord, talk to people you can partner with. And with that, I think we should open it up for questions.
Yeah.
Or we should make the room go dark and just scare you all. Okay, questions?
Raise your hand, please,
Their hands are up. Their hands are
speak
up.
into the mic.
Hi, I'm Emily. I own a seat at the table books just south of Sacramento in Elk Grove. We are a bookstore, a cafe, an event venue, and a reservation venue, all kinds of things. And we find the marketing is hard for people to really wrap their minds around everything we do. I had someone who followed us for a year and a half. Someone posted a picture of a pizza and they said, "You have a cafe?" Well, it's right there in the logo. So how do you manage, like, when you have all of these different hyphenations, marketing in a cohesive way?
I have many parts to this, and I let people discover it as they need to. We speak our truth in volume. So we put out this thing called this happens to be called the third annual quarterly bulletin, which is intentionally confusing. And this tells people not just what we do, but why we do it and when we do it. And some of our programs are in here. We update it as quickly as it's out of date, which ends up being like by every other month. But we're fond of the idea of people discovering things. I think it's a strong signal that someone says, what? You have a cafe? Because if they're already a customer, then you're just extending that customer experience for them, which is exactly what you want to happen. I think that the idea that that's frustrating to you is that you want them to know a lot, but their needs aren't always going to be the same all the time. So when someone who is just discovering our print shop or just discovering some of the other things that we do, that's a magical moment, because their need has arrived. And that means that we're guiding behaviors and guiding sort of the need of this community into the stuff that we do, not just the one thing we do, but the other thing we do too. So let's call that a bonus. Let's call that a plus. And I know you're frustrated, and I don't mean to sort of minimize that, but I think that's a very positive event, actually, and I'd be encouraged by that.
I would just add to that and say have a care with your branding and how you brand yourself. The shop at Matter might give a clue that there's more to Matter than just the shop at Matter. There's other things there. Right. And as you expand into other areas, you may have to adjust your brand. And that is a very tricky thing to do, I know. But that is something to definitely put on your radar at the beginning, that how customers see you and how that will evolve is going to have to be something you'll consider.
For us, actually, we had to start a different Instagram for the bookstore in order to pull it apart and create a little bit of an identity that was a little bit more fun and kind of unique to the bookstore. Whereas I felt like the overall, the wedding side of the business is very elegant and has a different feel. So that worked for us. And then we try to do different marketing where, you come to the restaurant and get 15% off in the bookstore, or some like overlapping promotion on your social. But I agree as well. It's not, customers don't need to always know every part of you, but, the great thing is that they're coming in for different reasons, and hopefully they're discovering the other reasons. So.
Hi. How long would you kind of like a timeline wise give a new venture, like a new expansion, before you're kind of like, okay, like this isn't going to grow. This isn't going to like take off. Like, do you guys kind of have like a timeline of like, give it a year, give it 2 years before you just kind of say, okay, this isn't it?
Depends on your finances.
Yeah, it depends on your risk. Your risk will determine that quite clearly.
Yeah.
If you go into high risk situations, you don't have much runway. And if you have no runway, then you're going to stress yourself out. And if it's something you really want to do and you have no runway, that's it. It's over. I mean, I don't know how to do it any other.
That just depends on your capacity.
Yeah.
I think you also have to look at what feedback you're getting about that new venture. If you're seeing feedback from your customers, that's one thing. But if it is not taking off the way you thought it might, you might have to get out into the community and find out why it's not being picked up at all. Maybe just not enough local demand for it, but that's something also to consider.
Sort of. I mean, I knew I would say sort of to somebody today. Sort of. Reduce your risk. That's it right there. I mean, all of us would say like, okay, just don't go so hard. Give yourself as much runway as you possibly can and do a proof of concept. Sometimes you listen to the customer, but sometimes the customer has no clue what's coming at them. And that's going to be good for you because that surprise gives you a launching pad. So I know these are funny metaphors, runway and launching pad, but you are absolutely trying to get attention, but you're only trying to get that attention when you've worked it out. So you're not trying to get negative feedback and then let that manage like how committed you are to a project. That negative feedback is for your improvement. And then you need to launch it into its best self. Mm-hmm. So don't launch it as a project that you have no proof of concept of. Don't launch it as a vulnerable idea. Launch it as something that you're clear about. And so that's one of the reasons why we are fans of long runways, because you will inevitably have kinks to work out of it. But if you expose it to your public before you've got a chance to make it durable, you're going to find yourself disheartened. So yeah, be very careful about that. It's definitely like, don't hurt your baby, don't shake the baby. But, really care for it in a very tender sort of way. Don't ask it to be profitable. Don't make your baby profitable. Don't work your baby. It's a bad metaphor, but
it's a terrible metaphor.
The baby needs to be profitable.
No, the baby must be free. Sort of.
Hi, my question kind of takes inspiration from the previous one and really just what you all were talking about, which is, did you always know that your bookstore was going to be a hyphenated one? Or did you go in as a bookstore first and add these hyphenations along the way, and what stuck, and that's now what your bookstore is?
For us, definitely, we knew going in that we were hyphenated. I think most of us. But have you all added anything after you launched that just clicked, that made sense?
A champagne bar.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, now we're adding a podcast studio. We added.
Is that a joke?
No, that's serious. In a month. No, I'm very serious.
I am now committed to opening a podcast studio.
The designers have done it. It's there for rent. We have a workspace, so it's an extension of that. But you're right. The numbers it's there. The need is there. It's out in the open. It's low hanging fruit to a certain extent. But we always started that way. But things didn't work, right? So, we had different partners that rented part of our space, and, it was maybe a year contract or something, and it didn't work. And, you move on and you grow. So, but things do work. And yeah.
I would just challenge the idea of stuck. Yeah, don't use that word. If you're not moving, it's done. So don't be stuck.
All right. Any more time for questions?
Yes. I was curious, are there certain types of events that you've been surprised with how successful they are? And likewise, are there other events that you won't touch with the 10-foot pole anymore, or anything related to the specificity of the events?
Political events for me, I try to stay away from those.
I'll take them. And guess what we say no to? We say no to capitalists. Like get rich events, like get rich books. We're like pass, no thanks. We're like, I think I see like the yin and the yang here. Like we've been telling you, Black people are all kinds of things. Like right here is the evidence, and you gotta accept that idea. Yeah, we don't touch capitalists and their sort of self-published books with a 10-foot pole. But we're surprised by how our film screenings are selling out, and how our seminar has sold out. Like the seminar has been really interesting because like I said, I think there's 3 topics that were interesting in the seminar that in the first 3 months. Indigenous worldview is in March. Last month we did the right-left divide and sort of questioning whether we were supposed to be in these right-left binaries. And the first one was neoliberalism and critiquing our neoliberal tendencies. And those events have been selling out, perfectly selling out for us. It's a surprise, but it's also very exciting to see that people want to talk about politics and talk about their political identities.
And just to add to that, so for us, if you all have a nonprofit, so we're a hybrid. So when you have a nonprofit, you do have to be careful about what political affiliations you have. So that's part of the reason why we stay away from political events. So I shy away from political events, but I lean into social events. So social events that progress us as a society, I'm all for. Politicians, I am not for. So I try to shy away from the political events, but social issues I lean into.
Tough to keep those separate these days. All right. Any more
Is there anything
questions?
you don't do? I don't mean that in that
No,
way.
you know, well, no, there isn't, as a matter of fact.
Awesome. Let's go.
I think because Tampa is so purple, we have to hit both. So we'll have left, but we try to also have right. I mean, we can't avoid them. Unfortunately, ideally I tried to, but when you avoid one, it means you want the other in that community. So we really just, we take the ire from both parties when we have something they don't want. But that's our stance, is that we reflect a purple community, and that's, we try to have a little bit of both. But that is who we are as a bookstore and as a business. And I think we're too, with everything that we do, we can't, we don't have the luxury of being able to be very defined in that. So we try to stay neutral.
All right. I think that is it. Once again, thank you to Ingram for sponsoring. And please fill out the survey.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA site at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!